Magyanatimirandasya Gyanam Janashalakya Chakshudamilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namashreshnam Manumavisatripotramatrasarupam Rupam Tasyagrajamuro Parimatharim Gastavatim Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhikamadhavasam Prapto Yasya Pratita Gripaya Shri Gurum Tamna Tasmi Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyaiva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Nikhilashruti mauliratnamaladhyati nirajita padapankajanta aji mukta kulairupashyamanam paritashtam harinam samshrayami anarpitacharim chidat karunayavatirnakalaham Shumarpaitamуннатаж balarāsan suhaktishriyam Hari purata sundaradhyuti kadamba sandipita Sadahridaye khandaresh purato vasachinandana Ajanulambita bujjo kanakavadato Sankirtanai kapitaro kamalaya taksham Vishwambaro dvijavaro jugadharma palu Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro Ladini Shakti Swarupaya Gauranga Suridaya Bhakta Shakti Pradhanaya Gadadhara Namastate He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Radhe Vrindavanadi She Karunamrita Vahini Kripaya Nij Padabja Dasyanmayam Pradiyatam Bhaktya Bhinaya Aparadha Lakshay Chiptashchakamaditarangamadhye Kripamai Tvam Sharanam Prapanam Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Shri Sachinandan Gaur Hari Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Prabhu Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gaur Nityananda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ji Ki Jai, Shri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premanand Hari Hari Bol. So, pranam to all of you. Good evening. It's my honor and good fortune to be in the company of you all. Thank you so much, Jamuna, for the invitation, and the whole family, and all of you for investing your valuable time and attention in being here today, somehow in trusting that I may have to say something useful for your lives, basically, literally. If not, that I would like to believe that you wouldn't be here. So I'm very honored for that, and that's a big commitment to have people who are trusting you in one way or another and open to receive whatever you have to say. That's a serious business. That's not a joke. It's not for me just merely like a performative function. Okay, I see it, I say something, end of the class, Prashant Ki Jai. But it's Harikatha is a very deep exchange of hearts, ideally. It's Shravan Kirtan, and Kirtan. Shravan also means listening, and listening means opening ourselves to be transformed by what we listen. Ideally. Sorry if I speak from the ideal, but it's good to know what's the ideal. So, and that's not sometimes always easy, to be willing to transformation, but actually listening is the first step in love. There's this Christian theologian, Paul Tillich, he will say the first step in love is listening. I will say basically the same. The 9 angas of bhaktis begin with Shravan, listening. Listening is not just someone's given the class, I try to sit without falling asleep. That's Shravan. That's some level of Shravan. Yeah, we will agree. Let's be generous. We have to begin somewhere. But the ultimate listening means I'm there fully receptive, fully open to be invaded by the message, whatever message I'm listening to. So that's the beginning of love, trying to open ourselves to what's coming from the other place, and and be transformed. Love is the most transformative thing of all. Love is the goal of our lives, as we were talking a few weeks ago with some devotees. Is the paradox of love is that love is this thing we need the most, but sometimes love is the thing that we are terrified the most also, because love implies full transformation, and sometimes we are not so willing to full transformation, and that's why the process is gradual. And Krishna is generous enough to say, you can start chaturvidha bhajantam, you can approach me by just because of money and knowledge and position, and we will work our way throughout the few years and times we will get to. So eventually we can refine, okay, I want love, and love means to be fully transformed, to be willing to be fully transformed constantly. That's interesting thing, no? That the adventure of love is constant transformation. As we were reading the other day, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, he's saying, at every moment, at every nanosecond, let's be more precise, Krishna is becoming more beautiful. It's not that Krishna is beautiful or is the all attractive and that has some top, some limit. All attractive means you become more attractive at every moment. So the more attractive he becomes, the more the Brajavasis increase their love to serve that increased beauty. So every time Krishna is more beautiful and the devotees are loving him more, and Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami say, and the two of them are engaged in a competition in which none of them accept defeat. Krishna more beautiful, Brajavas is more loving, but more loving means he's more beautiful, and that means they are more loving, and there's no end. That's what we call the spiritual world. So here we are training for entering into such a beautiful lifestyle, which is constantly expanding, evolving. So that's very beautiful.
That's
So
a good question on that regard.
yes.
So in our relationship with Krishna, so Krishna is constantly increasing in his beauty because of the love that he's receiving from his devotees. And it's that competition. So then, but that is individual to the person, that he shows that exhibition of beauty, of all attractiveness. Because when we come in our relationship with Krishna, we see him. So it's
recalculating like GPS.
So the all attractiveness that Krishna shows to his devotees is personal to the individual devotee. It's not like we come in with our relationship with Krishna and we're seeing, boom, the full glory of what he's having with the Brijvasis.
Mm-hmm.
So it's individual, what he is showing to each individual person in that moment in time.
What will you say? Someone will ask you that question.
I'd say yes.
I will say yes.
Yeah, no,
you knew the answer already.
But I wanted to ask you it, and then you said that. So okay,
Yeah. Of course, the relationship of Krishna with each one of us is ultra personalized. That's why I call my book Radical Personalism, because it means it's something radically personal, radically in the good sense, to the very root. Is unique, specific, with each person. That's the beauty of it. And each devotee will see Krishna in a different way according to their love they have for Krishna. Non-devotee sees Krishna in the exact same way than other. It's not that the only difference is between those who are in Madhurya Bhava and Vatsalya and Sakya. No. Inside of each of those camps, every individual devotee will see Krishna's beauty in a unique way. Because again, the reciprocation is personal, individual. Devotee loves Krishna in a certain way, and Krishna will show himself to the devotee according to the unique flavor of that specific love that is unrepeatable. Sorry, I will be exercising my English with you, so beg forgiveness for that. So that's beautiful for me. When Krishna says in the Gita, Yatamam prapadyante tam stataiva vajami, according to how you approach me, I reciprocate. So that's not in a generic way. It's specifically, uniquely, according to how you come with your mood, with your heart, with your individuality. I will respond with my own mood and heart and individuality in a very unique, unrepeatable flavor. So that's, he can do that. That's why he's who he is. Rupa Goswami will say he's Akila Rasamrita Murti. He's capable of reciprocating with each heart in each mood in a very most unique way. So that's important for us to also know when approaching him. That again, we are approaching a, Srila Prabhupada would say, supreme personality of Godhead. That's again for me, it's radically personal. He's not saying Krishna is Godhead. Krishna is the personality of God. Now let's be more specific. He's the supreme personality of God. That's very personal, very ultra personalized. So he likes those relationships. I mean, relationships ideally have to be very personalized, unique, specific. If we try to have a relationship with people from a very generic template, okay, my prayers go to you. I mean, by nature, relationships will force you into specificity, so to say. You cannot keep the connections on a very generic level. It doesn't work. And for becoming a specific, of course, that can be sometimes messy, to enter into the details. But that's what life is about, relationships are about, and that's all the preparation of our heart to relate to the more specific and personalized person of all, which is the supreme personality of God. Because again, if we do not how to say, learn to relate among each other in a personal way, probably we will be projecting that same way of relating to the divine, and that will not be very personal. It can be pretty impersonal sometimes, or the opposite. One detail, so on the opposite, we may profess a very personal Krishna, this and that, but we will misreflect that in how we relate to each other, sometimes in very depersonalized ways. And that reminds me, this section of the Bhagavatam, we were quoting this a few days ago in Switzerland, third canto, Kapila Dev is saying a few very strong words. There are like 13 verses. I don't have the exact number now. I think it's chapter 9 and verses whatever, 10 to 20 something. He's speaking about Archana, and it's very interesting there. Those are my favorite verses when someone asks me, Maharaj, can you give me some instruction on Archana? I'll go there first. Because in that section, Kapila Devi is saying, if you worship the deity, but then you mistreat every other person, your worship is imitation. So that's my first lesson on Archana. It has nothing to do with mudras and technical stuff. It has to do with real life relationships. He even will say, if you make the least distinction among two human beings, that's like pouring ghee into ashes. Like yajna is not going on there, something like that. So and he uses some other strong words there, but making the point that if you love God, that has to be reflected in how you relate to everything else, because there's a very nice verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And I'm going to your question 1 second. I keep you in mind. Sorry. This is the danger with questions, that I start saying something and so many triggers on the way. So thank you for that. That's a nice danger. So there's a verse quoted from the Vishnu Purana who says, Ananya mamata Vishnu prima sangata mamata, which basically means if you have love for Vishnu, for God, that means that if you love him, you love whatever is in relation to him. The nature of love is you love whatever is in relation to the person you love. No? Srila Prabhupada will say, if you love me, love my dog. No? He will give this example. If you love someone, whatever is in connection to that someone, I also love it. So if you love Krishna, whatever is in connection to Krishna, you should love it. And it happens to be that everything is in connection to Krishna. So it is designed in such a way that you don't have an excuse to not love anything. You follow my point? If I say I love Krishna, immediately you're in a big mess, if you will. Because you have to, if you really love him, that will be reflected in how you relate to everything, not even everyone, but everything, because everything is in connection to that. Not to make anyone feel discouraged here, but just for us to understand how not to cheat ourselves in our relationship with the divine, and how we can have a nice like barometer to see, okay, where is my relationship also, no? We can begin in the immediacy of the daily life. Sorry. Okay. Sorry.
No, Martha, it's just continuing that specific relationship. So as jivas, of course, we have the association of devotees as jivas. This about approaching that specific relationship with Krishna through the Vrajvasis, through the eternally liberated devotees. Right? This is where somewhere in there I get sometimes a little bewildered or confused. It's like Prabhupada would say, Prabhupada would say, just approach the residents of Vrindavan, because they will be there for us as devotees. But at the moment we're here as jiva. But we need that association. They will carry us closer to Krishna. So it's like that's what's growing right within us, and from the seed of bhakti, where we become accessible to those Vrajvasis, the eternal devotees. Could you maybe say something more about that? Because somewhere in there, I get kind of.
Yeah, I'll try to say something. Yeah. So, yeah, what you are talking about basically has to do with the idea of Raganuga Bhakti, which in the sense that Raganuga Bhakti means to serve following the footsteps of the Brajavasis, of the Ragatmikas. And I don't want to become too technical, so I won't torture you with too much Sanskrit. I will torture a little bit, but not so much. So, of course, the goal of life is to, in our particular tradition, our focus, our face of divinity that we will want to serve forever is Vrindavan, Maya, Navadip is there as well. There's no difference between the two actually. So Srila Prabhupada, as you quote him, as Rupa Goswami mentions, the idea is to that Bhava Lipshanakarya Braja Lokana Sharata, says Rupa Goswami. Sa seva sadhaka rupena siddha rupena chatra. That's my doses of Sanskrit torture. That's it. So he's saying we are to follow in the footsteps of the Brajavasis. But also something important that I will say to make it practical and realistic to us, because of course also we are prevented, do not imitate something that is beyond your reach, or do not imitate, do not follow the footsteps by dressing with sari as a male, I'm saying in this case, and so on. So one substantial way of following the Brajavasis is how they appear to us in the Gaur Lila. Because in the Gaur Lila, we have all the inhabitants of Vrindavan appearing as sadhakas, as devotees, as practitioners. Of course, they are high caliber practitioners. They're eternally perfected. But somehow, I will say it's maybe more relatable to us to see them practicing and giving an example that we can relate to where we are. No, like if you go to the life of the Goswamis, it may be more relatable, the life of Rupa Goswami, than the life of Rupa Manjari in certain stage of your practice. At certain stage, you will connect with both, and you will, and so on and so. But it all begins generally through the doorway of Gaur Lila. No, so I will, and of course, Gaur Lila means not only those eternal associates who served Mahaprabhu a few hundred years ago, but the extension of that Gaur Lila in the form of acharyas and parampara who somehow show this example and mode. So by connection with them, gradually again, we connect with the eternal associates of Vrindavan as they appear in Gaur Lila, by imbibing that properly, while simultaneously hearing about Braja Lila. No, all that should be done gradually. No, because sometimes I've seen devotees, I don't know, they get a little bit too, let's say, fanatical. Why not? In many directions we can be fanatical, but in this case I mean like less insisting too much about just hear about Braja Lila. That's a high good thing, so that's what we should be doing. But I would say that something is the highest doesn't mean that you should be doing that. No, that's the highest. Are you ready for the highest? No, so you have to also be realistic, because sometimes too much insistence on exclusive lila narrations can be very interesting evasive device for not dealing with some unresolved human issues that we may have. Do you follow my point? So let's talk about the highest, but probably, as Srila Bhakti-Rakshak Goswami will say, it's better to talk about basic things in a deep way than about higher things in a very shallow way or in an evasive way, what to speak of that. Unconsciously, we may be doing that, but resorting to the highest topics, to not having to deal with more, how to say, embarrassing layers of reality that we need to deal with so we can gradually enter the fully human realm. Not like I mentioned in my book, the Lila of Vrindavan, the Lila of Navadvip is Nara Lila. Nara Lila means it's divine and human at the same time. So if I'm not humanly in place, my humanity is not in place, how can I enter that Lila where humanity is fully in place? Because in the Lila of Krishna, in the Lila of Mahaprabhu, humanity is showing its perfect expression, being totally spiritualized. It's spiritual, but there's humanity there. So if I'm not fully human, how much I can reach that Nar Lila? So it's important that we have our humanity in place with the idea of attaining ultimately the realm of Braj. Yeah. Some ideas. Again, each question deserves its own separate visit to the UK, not even one lecture. No? But thank you for that. And since we mentioned that point, I may touch upon the topic that officially I was thinking to share with you, but of course, officially we will go wherever the topic takes us. No, I'm not here to manipulate Harikatha. I'm hopefully to be manipulated by the narration of the topic. So whatever we have to end, let's go there. But I wanted to share a few words on the topic of fitting in versus belonging deeply in Krishna consciousness, which is a topic that I mentioned in my recent book, because it's a topic that I've gone through myself personally. The writing of my book was just kind of the byproduct of certain experiences I've gone through recently. So it's for me, it's a very important point, to establish the difference between what does it mean to belong deeply to Krishna consciousness, what does it mean to fit in. I hope you already feel the difference between the two words. No? Because I'm saying that because sometimes even inadvertently we may think of the two as synonyms. How we may use the words to refer one word to refer to the other. And that's tricky because the language we use makes us think in a certain way and makes us see reality in a certain way. So if in my language, for me, fitting in and belonging is the same thing, probably in my mind, it may be the same, and how we relate to others may be the same. And that can be problematic, to say the least. So anyhow, personally, I want to enter into the drama of my unauthorized autobiography. But basically, and it's not only first time, many times, because that's how life happens. You go through certain crises, and crisis is not a bad word, just in case. If you even study the word crisis, means decisive point. Like you're taken to a situation outside of what's usual, and you have to, again, going back to the GPS, recalibrate, recalculate, how to continue from here, and realizing I cannot continue in the same way I was continuing yesterday. I cannot continue that way anymore. Some shift happened that does not allow me to put play to the same template I was using for the last 25 years or whatever. So I think it happens to all of us in different ways, in moments in life, and it's important that we understand, okay, I may need to adjust my journey, so to say. And the question comes, so how can my question was, okay, I want to continue being a devotee. I'm I don't have any project of, of leaving my vows, my anything. But I cannot continue as I was continuing before. Because again, as I mentioned, some things happen. So it's not working in the same way it was working before, which is okay. Again, that's not a problem, although we may feel it as such. That's one sense part of the progress. Because if it always works in the same way forever, maybe it means you are not going anywhere. But when you are making progress, you have to make constant adjustments basically in the journey. So that happened to me a few times. Again, I don't want to go into talking about myself, but the question was, okay, how do I kind of keep Krishna consciousness relevant and relatable to me? No, I cannot just be a, how to say, a member in name externally doing, but I want to belong. Again, I don't want to just fit into just like some box, so to say. No? And I was in a particular situation where it was like outside of the box. You have heard this expression, no? Outside of the box, which means you do not belong to any of the usual labels. That's interesting experience, I can tell you. When people start to ask you like, okay, so which mission do you belong? And I have no answer to that question. And you start to see like, oh, like the Google in the mind of the person, like searching for some reply to that situation, and Google collapsing, no reply to your search. Sorry. So those are interesting moments where you do not fit any of the usual boxes, and maybe a new box has to manifest, if you want to call it like that. But
what would be the usual boxes? What would be the usual boxes of fitting in?
I mean, I'm not condemning if someone is in some of those usual boxes, just in case.
How does that normally look? How does those boxes normally look? Like you have ISKCON, you have.
Yeah, you have a few answers for that question, no? At least you have a few options. No? Which, of course, also that's a separate topic altogether. And it was funny because today or yesterday, not yeah, yesterday, I shared some flyer I have a podcast on Saturdays generally, and I invite different people. And this Saturday, I'm inviting one devotee called Bhima Karma. So we'll be talking on seeing, grieving, and healing abuse. So he himself posted that on his own Facebook profile. And another place, maybe I posted it, and it was funny. A few places people was asking like, so who is this Swami Padmanabha? Not this. Who is? I mean, it was not a bad mood. It was just, who is this guy? I don't know him, basically. But it was funny. I don't know if funny, but sometimes the implication of the question basically is, who is his guru and which mission does he belong? And for me, it's like, that's not a reply to a question about who are you. No, because even if I have an answer to that question, or if I don't, still I am someone separate from that answer to those questions. You follow my point? As if I ask who is Jamon, and someone says he lives in the UK and drives a whatever blue car. Okay, that says something, but that's not who she is. No, so it's funny for me sometimes how even unconsciously the structure of our, not all of course, but sometimes the structure of the conversation is like, who are you means which is your box in one sense. No, where do you belong? And sometimes I've had that experience. I remember it was tragicomical, but I have been in the streets walking, and some other devotee will cross me and will ask me, oh, so who is your guru? And I can feel like, depending on my answer, the conversation stops here or continues. No, and for me, it's like, that's impersonalism, basically. I mean, we are not talking like individuals. It's just like, tell me your tribe, and I know if you are dangerous or not, legal or not, if I'm allowed to have a conversation with you or not. And for me, that's, I don't know, so shallow, so far away from the depths of our tradition, and again the radical personalism of our tradition, which is so much about being personal, not only with Krishna again, but for me sometimes it's a little bit like sad to begin with, that we have such a richness of personalism, but sometimes we treat each other so poorly in our community. I mean, I'm not generalizing and saying everyone is that, but just, and this doesn't happen only in our community, just in case, because I like to also interact with people from other traditions, and we talk, and I mentioned to them what's going on in our community. And, oh, we have our own version of that one. They check their boxes. Oh, we have that one. Okay. So it's kind of a thing of the times. So anyhow, the point is that I think it's important that from whatever, I'm not talking only about from myself, but from wherever each of us are in our spiritual journey, that we can feel that we belong, and not just that we have to fit in, to be accepted, to be part of, but that we can belong, which means we can be ourselves, and that we don't need to be something else to be part of something, because how much I can be a part of something if I have to compromise who I am. That's kind of an oxymoron. It's self-contradictory. So, and we see in life, in the world, how people do whatever it takes to be part of something. Even if you're in a gang or things like that, they are willing to go through all these initiation rites, so to say, to feel part of the group, so to say. So that's telling, but that can be dangerous, because we may be able to compromise many things just to fit in, which is not belong, remember. I want to make that point to begin with, that fit in implies compromising your identity and not being actually accepted for who you are, with all the messiness that we may still carry. And actual belonging is, I am who I am, and I am on my journey of purification, but I am accepted from day one, unconditionally, because that's how Krishna is accepting us. As we will talk, Krishna is accepting us unconditionally. Then we will work the details on the journey, but to begin with, we are accepted unconditionally. Krishna is not putting a long list of, first you need this, and then I'll think about it. That goes against the idea of causeless mercy. Unconditional love means that's already there, even before you did anything. That's mind blowing, basically. If you think, I'm being already loved by Krishna, even from the time I didn't know there was something called Krishna. No? I'm being already accepted fully by him from day zero, so to say. Wow. The more we become aware of that, the more we can really belong, because I realized, wow, I don't need to make a performance in front of Krishna so he accepts me finally. No? You were going to ask something, Karneshwari?
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. I'm going to preface it by saying I'm really not so sure how clear the question is, but there is a deep question in there somewhere that needs answered. So when you talk about fitting in, like I see different layers of that. So maybe starting off with trying to fit in to your community that you're in, because so you want that acceptance. So that's one level of fitting in, as opposed to belonging. But then, like, another deeper layer is why you want to fit in, like, because you think you believe at some point that that's the only way to please Krishna. That so it's not just a social thing, but you think you feel like your spiritual life depends on that fitting in, and if these group of people aren't pleased with you, then you're not going to make progress, because you have to please the devotees. So that's where it gets complicated, because you can drop to some level, you can drop caring whether people think this, that, or the other about you, but it's when you start to wonder, well, these are Krishna's devotees, and so what if they're not happy with me? So that's And then there's one more one more level of it. I don't know if I can express it properly, which is even if you get past that, then there's like you've got to fit in with Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I know, so you just said there that he always loves us unconditionally. But I suppose my question is, if I start to kind of feel like I'm breaking out of previous modes of how I used to be a devotee, and it's becoming more personal for me, but then I still have to make sure that that's actually okay with Krishna, and I'm not just actually going off track, that actually, you know, I'm fitting in with Krishna. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good.
But was that a question? No. It was more like a comment, which is okay. I mean, I'm not just, I would just want to make clear if you had a question that, so I addressed that.
Maybe the question bit then is, could you say something about if we aren't getting the favor of the devotees, you know, and how we see that in relation to pleasing Krishna through pleasing the Vaishnavas, and then the second part of the question is, you know, when we do start to feel ourselves maybe having to become more individual in this path, how to be sure that we're not just making it up and you know, going our own way, and actually, you know, Krishna is happy with where we're going.
Yeah. Okay. Fasten your seatbelt, please.
Great question. Really great question.
Thank you for both. Yeah. Yeah. The first one is interesting, and it can get tricky in the sense of how to say. Of course, we learn that's in Shastra, the importance of the Vaishnavas and how we connect with the divine through the devotees, in the sense that without a devotee, probably none of us will know that there's someone called Krishna, basically. Generally, you won't figure that out by yourself. Like one morning, it's like, yeah, I think God has to be like that. And you come with your own Krishna book suddenly, no? So that's so important. Sadhu sanga is the root cause of bhakti, as it's said in Chaitanya Charitamrita. But I'm thinking about the trickiness of that, in the sense that when we say, so your relationship with Krishna depends on your relationship with the devotees, and sometimes it kind of becomes like, how to say, weaponized, in the sense of, let's say some devotee, because we say with the devotees, yes, but there are different levels of devotees. No? And let's say that some devotee misbehaves. It happens sometimes. And you have a relationship with that devotee, but that devotee misbehaves, and you kind of react accordingly to that misbehavior. You may take a distance or object to that. And then comes the weaponization of the word aparat, for example, that you are being offensive to that person, and because of that, Krishna is not pleased with you, and you have no connection with him. And of course, that can happen if, in the sense of, if you are really a monster and are attacking all the Vaishnava viciously, which I hope that's not the case. I don't think we are on this journey for that. But in general, that's not happening. So, but sometimes I've heard this idea that, okay, you, whatever, some even elder devotee distance from you, or rejected you, or criticized you, and you are immediately out of the loop, out of the plug. Krishna is totally, and you follow my point, no? So I'm saying that because sometimes that can be weaponized and abused and create so much guilt trip or shame, and when actually probably you are doing what you have to do. But sometimes in the environment, some things may happen in the name of, no? Which again, this does not do away with the principle that the connection with the devotees is so crucial, because they personify love for Krishna, so to say. And our goal is that. Our goal is not Krishna. Our goal is love for Krishna. We don't want Krishna without love for Krishna. I don't want Krishna just to be my servant or like a puppet. I want love for Krishna, even without Krishna. So to say, I mean, of course, if there's love for Krishna, Krishna is there. But my point is the devotees are more interested into loving Krishna even without, I mean, in separation of Krishna, than having Krishna without love for him. Just like having him like appear in front of me is to entertain me for a while or something. No? So in that sense, the devotees are very important, but the way that they have to be important is by us again not fitting in, going back to the fitting in, but by deeply belonging. No, I mean sadhu sanga is a very, how to say, a very intimate, transparent connection. It's not a formality. No? Sadhu sanga is not just let's meet each other on Sunday feast and like do whatever we have to do in a little bit. That's sadhu sanga ki jai. Rupa Goswami described what sadhu sanga, dadati prati grinati guhyama kyati prichati. It's a sharing of hearts. It's being vulnerable a lot. Yeah, I talk about that also in my book, the importance of vulnerability, the importance of exposing to one another with trust. No? Sri Rupa Goswami will say sadhu sanga is swajatya, snigdasya, and swatavar. So swajatya means you have to have deep connection with people who are like-minded, no? Similar species, so to say. And snigdasya means affectionate. The relation has to be affectionate. No, it cannot be like too imposed and too rigid and too like motivated by fear. Again, that has to do with fitting in. Sometimes we try to fit in because we are fear. If I do not fit in, this happen, or if I do not this, they will be like that or like that. So belonging has more to do with trust and love and openness. And as I mentioned, the importance of being accepted. As Krishna is loving us unconditionally, a real Vaishnava will be representing that same spirit, basically. Now, a Vaishnava shouldn't be like a threatening figure in your life. We were talking with Sam a little bit today about that, because the first 2 days, every time I went down from the stairs, he will stand up and Jai Maharaj. And I'm like, you don't need to do that. I mean, sit down. It's okay. I mean, if it comes from your heart and you feel joyful to do that, I don't want to repress that either. But don't feel like, oh, Maharaj is coming, so Swami is entering the room. It's my duty to be nervous. Something like that. No. The standard of Vaishnava etiquette in front of a sannyasi is to enter into anxiety because I don't know what to do. No? And I may be chastised. That's not how it should be. No? That's not how it happens. So again, our connection with Vaishnava should be in terms of belonging and trust and affection, because if we are still trying to fit in, and I know that impulse is in all of us generationally from who knows how long time ago, but if we are just conceiving relationships in terms of fitting in, it's kind of like, how to say, we are very afraid of being seen still. No? We are afraid of, if I show who I am, what will happen? So better I show my best makeup so I fit in. Oof, they didn't see who I am. Oof, such a relief. And it's like, oh, that's not sadhu sanga. Sadhu sanga doesn't mean to be relieved that they didn't know who you actually are. Sadhu sanga and belonging means the relief of knowing that they know who you are, and they, despite that, they love you, so to say. Or because of that, let's put it like that. Even because of your messiness, they love you. It's not so much, I love you despite how a disaster you are. No, I love you, especially because of that. Unconditional love has that merit. That's in the psychology of mercy. No, like they say, Nityananda Prabhu is especially inclined toward the most fallen. No? He hears where's the most fallen. He feels some like partiality in that direction. Oh, of course, this is not an excuse like let's continue falling down more and more and more and more, so we get more mercy of Nityananda. That's not what I'm saying. Just in case, do not edit the class and say Maharaj was like. So something like that in connection to the first question. I totally forgot the second one. Sorry.
I don't know if I can catch the essence of it again. Just something like if we start to feel a bit more confident that we
Yeah.
to
Thank
develop
you.
our own way.
Yeah, I came back.
Yeah.
So yeah, that has a lot to do with the idea of individuation. It's a term I use in my book. Also, there's a whole chapter about that. Actually, individuation is a term originally coined by Carl Jung, which basically means you're an individual, but you have to develop your individuality. Because we are individuals, but how much of an individual we are, how much of our individuality is blossoming in its uniqueness, or how much we are individuals because we are individuals by nature. We cannot but be, but sometimes we are not very individuals ourselves. We are very much like whatever everyone says, I go for it. I don't have my own, I don't know, thoughts, feelings, criteria, which again, there's a place for that. As I like to say in the class, there's a place for kindergarten bhakti. It's okay. We are not demonizing. It's beautiful in its own way. Like we are still using pacifier, so to say, like learning to crawl. Those are the beginning steps of bhakti, and we may be fanatical. You have your license to be fanatical for a few years, like narrow-mindedness. Like Prabhupada said, it's like the beginning of the first blossom of the bhakti seed, and it's so tender, so fragile, so easily affected by anything that you have to put some, how to say,
Fence.
some fence. Thank you. So you grow and you think, okay, whatever is happening inside this fence is the real thing. There's nothing outside this. That's basically what we call fanaticism. Of course, when you grow beyond that, you realize, oh my gosh, there's a whole world of diversity, but you're already rooted enough to deal with that. So you have your fence stage to think like, okay, and to not think too much for yourself, to basically do copy paste, so to say. Which again, there's a place for that, and there's a place to quote our acharyas, of course, it's so important, but also to know our acharyas want us to be thinking for ourselves as well. Famous statement by Prabhupada, I want all my disciples to be independently thinking people. That's challenging, of course. So that's a service we have to offer. That's not so much I'm deviating from the norm. I have to develop my individuality, my criteria, my thinking as a service to my guru, to Prabhupada, to the parampara, to Krishna. That will give Krishna more pleasure. Krishna wants a very specific, unique offering from our part. At one point, Krishna will ask you, how do you want to serve me? And at that point, it may not be enough to say, however you want. Krishna said, no. Tell me what you want. What's your taste? Again, this may not be that moment yet, but at one point, one will have to offer that individual, unique. Like when Krishna is with his friends, they're having picnic, famous Brahma Vimohan Lila, before Brahma's four heads are spinning like crazy in bewilderment. Krishna is with his friends having picnic, and each of the friends have their own taste. It's not like Krishna asked them and said, we like whatever you like the most, Krishna. No. They will have their own taste, and Krishna may have a different taste, and it's okay. So it's important that we develop our individuality as a soul. Even we have a personality, and our personality, one may say, is acquired by nature, by the influence of the gunas. We could say that technically, because in all our previous lifetimes, in different bodies, different even species, not that we had the exact same personality, no, but in this lifetime we have a certain personality, and that personality can be developed in a healthy way, and that healthy personality, healthy humanity, sattva, we may call it, that can be fully spiritualized by bhakti, and we can offer that to Krishna. So that's an important point that I also try to make always. Although our goal is transcendental and spiritual, we have to be also developed on a human level, emotional level, psychological. All those layers have to be integrated. No, it's not no. I'm only interested in transcending this world. But transcending this, what does it mean? Transcending this world, like an evacuation plan. Huh? I have to leave this place as soon as possible. That's not our goal. Our goal is not mukti. Our goal is not leaving this world. Our goal is prem, loving Krishna. When you love Krishna, you no longer know where you are. Basically, you don't care. You love Krishna. I mean, so many verses in the scriptures about what does Mahaprabhu says in Shikshastakam, the 4th verse. He says, sundarim kavitam bhav. I don't care for all the things that belong to this world, but he even said, I don't care for living this world either. He said, Mama janmani janmanishware bhavatad bhakti rahait. The only thing I care for is bhakti, birth after birth, which implies if I have to come here over and over again, I don't care, because I can love and serve Krishna wherever I am. So my point with this is, again, going back to the point, we are trying to offer our individuality to Krishna, and it's important that we become, again, human enough. We develop a healthy relationship with our bodies. We develop we culture what I like to call emotional intimacy. In other words, we are not afraid of our emotions. We are not stigmatizing them, because it's easy to label everything as Maya. But you tell me, what's the result of that? Generally, you end up pretty dysfunctional. So it's not about labeling everything as Maya, but actually seeing everything as something that is potentially offerable to Krishna. So which is our orientation? Do I see everything as an obstacle, as Maya, or something that wants me to fall down, or whatever lens you want to wear? Or do I see everything, in Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's words, as potential paraphernalia to be offered to Bhagavan? You choose, no? You choose. But our scriptures say that every atom is inhabited by God. So if every atom is inhabited by God, how much you can condemn matter? Maybe I'm going to another topic here, but one point, and then I saw the 2 hands. I'm remembering, just in case. So you don't need to be like this for a few moments, because the other day I was giving a class and I didn't clarify that, and one Vaishnavi was like this, like for 10 minutes. I was so sorry. The hand was like, yeah. So I think part of developing our individual self, which of course is very important, how to know if that's not getting us astray. I would say, you judge the tree by its fruits. If you really see that, of course, with this, I don't want to overemphasize, okay, you just be balanced emotionally, psychologically, and that's all. No? And you neglect all your sadhana because of you're busy you're doing therapy or whatever, no? Because some people may need to do therapy just in case. I like the quote, chant and be happy, but also I like to add a parenthesis between chant and be happy, and add a few things that most of us need to do for that equation to work. No? Or like Deva Madhava in Michigan, he likes to say, he has his own version of the chant and be happy. Maybe those who were in Michigan learned that one. It's a kind of initiation if you visit Ypsilanti. He will say, it's chant and be honest. No? Then we talk about happiness, but the first chant and be honest. And sometimes being honest is not so happy. No, it's like honest. I have to recognize, acknowledge this, like heal this. No? Sometimes we may have unresolved human trauma, and that gets in the way sometimes of our practice. If it's not properly acknowledged first, healed, and we just I will just want to transcend. Sometimes we first need to descend. No? Before trying to ascend and transcend, let's ground ourselves a little bit and be more realistic. And I would say that if one is honestly trying to do that, one will receive very clear insight and confirmation that I'm not go on a straight and using this as an excuse not to give myself to Krishna. So I would say better not to add too much layers of extra concern about maybe I'm deviated. I mean, one has to really be honest and introspective, and Krishna is in the heart also. The Guru is there also, so he will be confirming. Who first? Two hands were there.
I think you started to cover and explain this next question I have, but just around being personal, developing your personality and being comfortable in that and offering that to Krishna, but how to make the distinction between an anartha that you need to work on, and you start speaking about it now. Some people need to go and actually work and shift some anarthas out. So what is how to make the distinction between personality and individuality, and then what is an anartha? Because even some devotees, they have fiery tempers, but they're using Krishna's service, and how to just make a distinction. What's an anartha? What isn't an anartha?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. Well, yeah, the word anartha, of course, technically speaking, the meaning of the word anartha. Artha means like value. Anartha means false value. So that's an interesting point. No? False value means like I'm seeing some value where it's not. I'm projecting value in something. I mean, everything has value, but I'm projecting a false sense of value in something. Like, how do you say in English? Like, counterfeit currency.
Oh
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's the word. It came first, but I doubted that. So you think, oh, this has value. And you go to the market, you say, give me this, and you end up in jail after 5 minutes. It's like, what happened here? No. So you try to purchase something with a false sense of value, if you will. No? So anartha, many times anarthas, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur will say that, which is interesting, that one of the main anarthas is Tattva Brahma, which means to be in illusion about what's reality. So when you know what's reality, basically, there's no place for anarthas. When you see who is Krishna, how everything is connected to Krishna, everything kind of falls into place, falls into context. So even if you have whatever, some impulses, let's put it like that, they can be expressed in a way that is not an anartha. To give you an example, because sometimes we may think, okay, anger. No, anger is someone may think anger is an anartha. So the conclusion, if you think like that, is it's not good to be angry. And if I'm angry, it's not good, first. And probably second, I shouldn't be expressing that because it's an anartha. So probably the end result of that is I swallow my anger, and probably it becomes a worse anartha. Now you have repressed anger, which is even more ingrained. So the following, because on the contrary, and I have here in my book, I quoted something. Can I share a few? I don't want to go too much, but with quotes, but I have to find it first. But the chapter on individuation, I'm quoting something from Prabhupada on anger, and he shows that there is a place for anger. It's a purport to the Bhagavats. Give me 1 second. Well, let's hear this one. Yeah, this is a good one. This Prabhupada's commentary to. I have to see the exact quote in the footnotes. That's for later. So he says, depending on our level of spiritual advancement or consciousness, we can control emotions, but we should not deny them. No? So if I'm angry. No, I cannot say, no, I'm not angry. Or I shouldn't be angry. Okay, you shouldn't, but you are. No. If you want, I wouldn't even say you shouldn't, but at least say that you acknowledge that you are angry. Because I've seen so many times that we don't want to reach that point that I'm angry. Because who knows which is the correlation we make with that. No, it means I have an art. It means this. It means that, and it's not good to be angry or whatever. So he says we should not deny them. And then he says something even more shocking. Anger will continue even in the liberated stage. So this is not an excuse, of course. Okay. So Dhruva Maharaj is becoming angry, overwhelmed with grief, and so on. Was not incompatible, sorry, with his position as a great devotee. It is a misunderstanding that a devotee should not be angry or overwhelmed by lamentation, and so on. Again, he's not giving, Prabhupada here is not giving him license to, okay, be as angry as you want. That's great. Prabhupada's giving blessings. No, that's not the point. But he's mentioning there you can be angry and learn to express that in a healthy way. As I mentioned in my book, there are not bad emotions, because sometimes we think bad or good emotions. They're not bad emotions. They're bad things we do with our emotions. So you can be angry and express your anger in a healthy way, which doesn't mean, of course, getting resentful and ultra violent and breaking everything. But there's a way to channel that particular energy, or not. Or there's a way to express that in a healthy, unhealthy way, or not to express that at all, which is another variety of unhealthy emotional expression. So I'm saying all this in relation to your question, because again, we sometimes may think to be angry is an anartha. Not necessarily. I would say to express anger in an unhealthy way, that's an anartha. Or to not express anger is an anartha. But to express anger in a healthy way, Prabhupada is giving us permission to do so. It's necessary. It will allow you to be in contact with your emotions, because if you lose contact with your emotions, that's a tricky scenario. So I will try to describe anartha in that way. Like we can have different impulses and tendencies, and when we don't know how to dovetail them properly in bhakti, that becomes an anartha. But when we acknowledge them, let's say emotions, impulses, and try to adjust them accordingly, for me that doesn't become an anartha anymore. As Prabhupada is saying, there's a place for that even in liberated life. What is speaking in our life as a sadhaka? To give you another example, which probably is maybe controversial, but anyhow, I'm already. But I talk about that in my book. I made a whole podcast of that, so everyone knows that. Sex life, for example. As you may know, some ideas will be, okay, sex life is only for procreation, and another expression of that is basically illicit, is bad, ontologically an obstacle. I don't agree with that. And not only I don't agree with that, but that's not supported by Shastra. Shastra says different things. Prabhupada say different things. Although sometimes historically certain standards are established, but again, we are persons, so every standard has to be adjusted to each particular situation. And as I was talking the other day with, I'm saying this because sometimes, okay, sex life without procreation is an anartha. Sometimes that's the label. But I will say personally, I mean, there is an expression of sex life in a committed relationship where both parts are, the sexual expression is a byproduct of their deep connection and intimacy. That's very different from a selfish, exploitative interaction, so to say, because sometimes we put everything in the same box, and that's not accurate. And as I was talking in a podcast a few weeks ago with a Christian monk, the two of us were talking about sex life. So he was telling me actually actual deep sexual interaction implies not only physical nakedness, but internal nakedness. You have to be really open to the other person emotionally. That's very hard. That's not so easy. It's easier to force yourself into celibacy, so to say. But to have a deeply committed, open, vulnerable relationship of intimacy. Intimacy, again, is not a bad word, although it may be taboo for some. That's not easy. That requires lots of inner work to really be present for the other person in a deep place. And that's what ultimately sexual interaction, healthy one, apart from procreation, also has to do. And that has been supported in Shastra by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I don't want to torture you with quotes, but that's there. So that's for me another way of explaining the idea of an art, or regarding me. I'm a sannyasi. I'm a monk. I've been a monk for the last 24 years. So in practical terms, I have no clue what sexual life is, physically speaking. But still, I have what we may call Kriya Shakti in Sanskrit, which is like creative energy, which expresses itself as sexual activity in physical terms, but in other ways as well. And I have to do what to do with that energy myself. I have to express my creativity, because sexual life is about creativity, connection, intimacy. And I have, as a monk, I have to know how to express all those things also. If I do not do that, I become dysfunctional. And I've seen a pretty number of them. And that's an anartha. That's an anartha. If a couple in a committed relationship is expressing sexuality in a vulnerable, open, deep way, I won't label that as an anartha. But if you are dressed in saffron, but you are repressing or denying or escaping, that's an anartha. You follow my point? So some ideas, that connection. I hope that helps. We had a question behind.
Yes, Maharaj, it's about going back to your topic about belonging and fitting in.
Yeah.
So there's so many different sampradayas and there's so many different denominations, and each sampradaya will think that their way is the best way. So you'll have like the Shiva worshippers, the Brahma worshippers, like Shiva Vaishnavas and Narayan. And so how does one because I was born in this movement and I was raised, how do I tell the difference between feelings of belonging versus just being exposed from a young age and just making friends and we just do this together? Because I can put myself in someone else's shoes who's a Shiva worshipper from a young boy, and they'll think their method is the right way. And it feels like if they've grown up like that and they turn to Krishna consciousness, it feels like what they've done for their whole life is a waste of time. And that's why they wouldn't come to Krishna consciousness, because they feel they would have wasted their time. So essentially, how do you tell feelings of belonging versus exposure?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. Those questions are the ones who come from second generation devotees. Yeah. So a few things that come to mind. The first thing that comes to my mind is, and you tell me whenever we are done, because I don't know your timings. I don't want to. I mean, we can continue.
Yeah.
You let me. I have. You know me already.
Well, let's just say a time, because I don't want to just interrupt. So what do you think for Prasadam? Something? It's 5 to 8 now. 8:15. 20 more minutes.
I mean, I'm okay. I can continue. I'm not.
8:30.
I don't have dinner, so it's not a problem for me. So I'm not hungry.
We'll check in at 8:30 and we'll see how it's all going.
Yeah, if I see each one like biting each other, means bring prasadam immediately. Cannibalism is about to manifest. So first thing that comes to mind is this idea of care. Each one will think their tradition is the best. And of course, that makes sense, because if you don't think what you are doing is the best for you, then why you are doing it? No. If you are convinced that something else is the best for you, what you're doing, why you are here, that say you have to have it clear. This is the best for me. No, it's not, because if not, you become a dangerous fanatical. You are trying to impose on everyone. This is the best for all of you. So all of you should stop doing what you are doing and join my tribe. And we know that mentality, what's the result of that mentality throughout history? I mean, basically most of the worst crimes in human history have been done in the name of God. By this conviction of this is the real thing and nothing else. And our tradition doesn't say that. Our tradition doesn't say only Gaudiya Vaishnavism is the unique, the only form of truth. Everything else is a waste of time. We don't say that. No. In the first book of our Sampradaya, if we want to consider our Sampradaya like belonging, beginning, if you will, from Mahaprabhu, it's a way of thinking about that. The first book from the Goswamis is Brihad Bhagavatamrita. That beautiful book is, I like it a lot so much. I just finished it, reading it like for, I don't know which time, a few times. And for me, one of the main messages of Brihad Bhagavatamrita is how Gopa Kumar or Narad Muni, part 1, part 2, it doesn't matter. They meet so many devotees, and they are not thinking, my way is the only way, this is the highest, everyone else is slower, like criticizing, but they're like actually thinking, oh, this is incredible, this is the best. They appreciate that. They continue then their journey, but they give a place to all those conceptions, which not all of them are Krishna in Vrindavan, let's say. And Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami says that beautifully in his Chaitanya Charitamrita. He says, each devotee from other sampradayas, and each devotee thinks their relationship with Krishna is the best. And each one of them is correct, he says. No, like on a subjective personal level, they will feel, oh, this is the best. No, Yashoda will think, oh, this is the best. But Salya, oh, this is the best. She won't change that for anything else. That's the mere meaning of sthayi bhav. Sthayi means it's fixed. No matter if you're exposed to something else, at that level, now we are going to the final part of your question, but at that level, if you are exposed to something else, you have, this is the best for me. No, I don't know, Murari Gupta, who is Hanuman, Gaur Lila, Mahaprabhu was trying to take him to Radha Krishna, Vrindavan. Didn't work because this is the best for me. And that's beautiful also. And it's beautiful when you find someone with that faith, and that can nourish your own faith. That's what happened in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. That's for me the perfection of interreligious dialogue. That you meet, I don't know, I like to talk with, I don't know, Christians or Sufis, and it's not that after my talk I'm confused about my own tradition, or maybe I will stop being a Vaishnava, I'm so disturbed. No, I feel that I'm nourishing my faith as a Vaishnava by witnessing their faith as a Christian. There is a place for that. That's when Gopa Kumar found Hanuman in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And Gopa Kumar is not trying to preach to Hanuman, like come to Golok with me. He's telling him, sing the glories of your Lord. That's the invitation. And Hanuman starts to praise Ram. And at the end, Gopa Kumar says, Jai Sri Krishna. No? So he's inspired because Gopa Kumar worships Krishna. So he hears someone else glorifying Ram, and he says it nourishes his faith in Krishna. Because of course, Ram and Krishna are the same person. And then the opposite, Hanuman asked Gopa Kumar, please sing the glories of Krishna. And Gopa Kumar starts to glorify Krishna. And Hanuman at the end says, Jai Sri Ram. No? So that's the idea. No? We are not trying like to defeat each other in debate, but that's the first part of the question. I wanted to make that point clear, that it's not about we feel my tradition is the best or my mood is the best, but from a very personal level, not so much trying to apply that to everyone else. And going to the more specific part of the question, how to know that your particular preference, so to say, is not just because you were born there, it's your religion, so to say. It's your family religion and not so much a choice. Of course, in one sense, it's a personal question, and in one sense, we don't know each other enough as to tell you, okay, knowing you for all these years, I maybe, so I don't like to sometimes give very conclusive answers to something personal in relation to someone I don't know that much. I think that may be dangerous. But I've known a few. I remember talking with Nam Rasa, a friend of mine, and probably a friend of yours as well, and a few years ago. And I appreciated what he told me, because he was basically born also from his very early childhood as a devotee. So he told me, well, at one point of my life, I realized, okay, I didn't choose to be a devotee, so to say. I'm already born there. And I was just going on with the waves. But at one point he told me, I felt, now I have to decide for myself if I want to be a devotee or not. So for me, that's kind of the difference between the fitting in and belonging part. Like, okay, till now, my parents are devotees, my friends are devotees, whomever I know is a devotee. So it was, so to say, the only option I had, to put it in one way, no, the only thing I knew, which I'm not saying that's something bad, but I really appreciate that someone gets to question oneself. I don't think that, oh, you have a faith crisis, how you are questioning that, you shouldn't be making that question. No, I think like that's great. No, and it doesn't mean that you are about to leave the tradition. It's just that actually you would like to really belong, and not just, I'm just like casually here, yeah, born into the, it's more like a social dynamics, no? My family, friends, everyone is going on there. So I think it's, yeah, it requires introspection. Going to the example that Nam Rasa gave me, was like, well, he also took his time to expose himself to other social dynamics, if you will, and see how he will feel and react, and do some experiments, so to say, compare this, that, to, and return to the practice with voluntary decision, so to say. I choose to belong. No? So I think that that's basically a way. It's not that I can give you a magical press this button and no, it will require kind of introspection. No? Introspection. And I will say that something important is to take the time to know the tradition in depth, also the teachings, the practices, the depth of it. Because one thing is, okay, being part of the social milieu of the tradition, my parents, the family, I know what's altar, kirtan, but take the time to really learning deeply what does it mean. Because if not, we take for granted all those things. And that's the danger, that because as a devotee, we are surrounded by everything we are surrounded by is extraordinary. No? Altar is extraordinary, the whole name is extraordinary, sadhu, sanga, bhagavatam, everything is extraordinary, but we may get accustomed to those things that are extraordinary. And that's tricky, especially if you were born with that. Because it's always there. So it's normal, it's part of, it's familiar. In itself, it's a blessing, of course, no, that you were born in such a family, and those beautiful samskar from day one, that's in its own self glorious. But yeah, it can have that pros and cons, so to say. The con may be you take that for granted, and you don't really appreciate the extraordinariness of that because it's too familiar. So sometimes, for it to not remain too familiar, it's important that we take the time to really dive deep into what does it mean actually to have deity at home. What's the holy name about? What's actually sadhu? And you go deep and study good association, and you can, wow, you rediscover your own tradition, so to say. You follow. It's like, wow, oh, I never got in touch with this level of depth, which is part of the tradition, but I needed to, rediscover it. And that may have to happen a few times. It's not that, okay, once in the lifetime, I rediscovered my tradition. Again, that's, we began the lecture today. It had to happen every time we feel, okay, this is no longer relevant or relatable to me. How do I continue my journey? And that's how you progress. You go deeply deeply. But yeah, I really celebrate your question, so to say. No, so it's, I mean, I appreciate the courage to present the question to begin with, because sometimes people we may be feeling that, but we may be nervous about, oh, but if I ask that question, what will the rest think about me? And all, again, the very fact that you present the question, for me, it shows your concern for belonging and not merely fitting in, because fitting in will be, I will make the question because the environment may not validate me, so I better remain like a paka, nice, no, second generation devotee, and that's fitting in itself. So the fact that you are exposing your willingness to explore and to question these things means you want to belong. And that for me is already a confirmation that you belong. No? At least on some level, you can always belong in so many levels. So I think it's healthy to have that type of discernment and openness. For me, it's not a problem. Like you are doubting what's happening with your faith. On the contrary, faith has to be nourished by certain healthy doubts. Doubts is not a danger to faith necessarily. As I mentioned in my book, the role of the guru sometimes is to create doubts, healthy doubts. Like you are thinking of us in a certain way about something, but it's a very limited way. But we may be very certain this is the way. So the guru will say something that will make your head spin. You're like, wow, I never thought that. Wow. Now I have a doubt. I'm doubting the way I was understanding the thing. But that's healthy. That's taking you to a place of openness and not so much certainty. No, certainty, that's the opposite of faith, actually. I mentioned that in my book. What's the opposite of faith? Certainty, not doubt. Doubt can nourish faith. Certainty can be dangerous because you become too convinced. I'm certain about everything. So nobody can change your mind. You cannot progress. You are just stuck in your certainty. You can become pretty fanatical. Even a social danger, public danger. Yeah. If you become very certain about something, and sometimes that happens to be wrong, but you are totally certain, I mean, you can become a serial killer, and you are certain that you are benefiting everyone. I mean, most of the people, they have to be really convinced about what they're doing. So watch out for certainty. So anyhow, I appreciate your question behind there.
Yeah, I'm trying to still formulate it a little
Still
bit.
coming.
It was kind of continuing on from Prahlad's question, and you were saying that to continue with a conviction, or like if you feel shaky in Krishna consciousness or in your path, that then you have to dive deeper into it, and that's the way that you keep going. But is there a point where it's not useful to continue to keep diving deeper? Like, so my understanding is that you need to come to everything with a level of faith and like with a level of open-mindedness. But I think in this path of like trying to find where you belong in Krishna consciousness, and it's hard to come to something so open-minded. Is it beneficial at all to step back and explore, in this case, other religions or other paths, or is it just worth instead focusing all of that energy into just diving deeper into Krishna consciousness instead?
Well, as you may imagine, my reply will be, it will depend on each case. There is no universal formula, because depending each case, each situation, for some it may be beneficial to concentrate on their path and go deep into that. For some others, there may need to explore something else, or for the same person in different stages. Even in my book, I mentioned that, of course, it's recommended before, if you are, let's say, a devotee, it's better to first you are relatively grounded in your own practice before you dare to explore other traditions, in the sense that it may be too much. Because if you're not grounded in your own tradition, you may get confused by so many other things. But at some point, if your groundedness, someone may feel the inspiration to learn from other traditions. Some other may not feel that inspiration ever in their journey, and that's okay. Now, it doesn't mean that, oh, he's sectarian. At some point, he should be engaged in an interfaith dialogue. Not necessarily. So my point is that it's not that there's only one way in which the sequence will happen for every person, because again, we are individuals. So each one is with their own journey, with their own combination of some scars and moods and mercy and necessities. So sorry, I cannot be too.
No, that's great.
I don't like to be like absolute. Okay, this is the way to do it for everyone. One size fits all. For me, that's more like impersonal to give like an advice. Like, okay, this is the universal pill for all of you in the same way. It will work. And the problem is when we feel it's not working for me. No, I need some personalized adjustment. Of course, we have this our universal teachings for all of us Christians, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's not that for me it's not, for you it is. But even that, for each of us, will be different. No, we will experience the Supreme Personality of Godhead in a very unique way as we talk. So everything ultimately is radically personal. But as you mentioned in the beginning, in some, because what I say was, it's good to go deep into your tradition, not so much when you are shaking your faith. My point was when you want to make the difference between I'm just belonging to a social dynamics, where I'm fitting in with that, or belonging deeply. So for me, that doesn't mean your faith is shaky, not just in case. But if someone feels that one's faith is shaky, again, there are so many things that may need to be done depending the case. Going deep into the tradition may help, but I understand that sometimes it's not a moment to just go deep. And one may need to, sometimes one may need to heal other type of departments, so to say, as I was saying before. No, in some cases, I've seen devotees coming with a very unresolved human past, and I don't feel that the best thing to tell them is just like lock yourself up in your room and chant 3 lakhs per day. No, 300 rounds. Increase the number. I've seen that sometimes. I haven't this problem. Chant more rounds. Sometimes that may not be the solution. Sometimes the solution is something very different. Something is just, let's talk. And maybe I don't have to tell you too much. Maybe that person just needs to be heard, and needs to express, and needs to be feel received and not judged by the other. And that's my contribution. Because sometimes we have this idea, we have to preach to the person and quote the Bhagavatam and tell all the right things and set him straight, whatever our idea is. And sometimes, no, I have to learn to just be there, present with the other person, make the other person feel, oh, I'm accompanied, I'm supported, I'm listened to. And that sometimes is more transformational than quoting the whole Bhagavad Gita but by heart to the other person. You follow? So it may take different forms. And in its own way, that's going deeper also, no? But not maybe going deeper in the idea we may think, not like chant three times more rounds, memorize 5 more verses, fast for 1 week, whatever. Sometimes we conceive all in increasing of a number. And sometimes the depth we need is of another type. We all need depth at all moments, but it's not always the same type of depth. Sometimes the form of that will be just sharing humanly in a very open, vulnerable way, and that will be as revealing as some other revelations we may receive in the middle of a kirtan. I can talk for myself. I've had one of the biggest epiphanies in my life, just sharing with someone very casually, informally, but totally deeply and unexpectedly. It was not in my agenda. I was like, feeling that the other person is totally present, hearing me, receiving me, not judging me, and I can really like again, be myself, be accepted with all my messiness. I have messiness, by the way. You know, I'm a sannyasi, but I have messiness. No, you have no superhero here in front of you. No? And I don't want to be a superhero, just in case. So yeah, so that's another type of depth. So I think it's important that we kind of, like, how to say, you know, are open to conceive there are different ways to be deep in our practice, to go deep in our practice, and each situation, each person, each stage will require a particular depth, and it's good that we are open to that and not just impose this is the only depth way of going deep possible, and that can create more trauma, more complexity. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much.
So anyhow, just we have a few minutes, just a few more words to conclude. Still nobody biting each other, so still we are here. So yeah, it's important. Again, I will say that to belong, of course, to feel that we belong somewhere, I think it's important that also we begin by understanding that we are somehow worthy of belonging. No, there is something intrinsic in us that is worthy of belonging. Because if you, to begin with, think I'm not worthy of that, you will never belong anywhere. So first we have to have that. No, we have to really, how to say, receive. As I mentioned before, Krishna is already loving you unconditionally. Krishna is already accepting you, allowing you to belong. But you have to receive that. If you cannot receive that, you cannot give that to others. If you cannot receive with an open heart, you cannot give with an open heart, because you can only give what you have first received. No? And sometimes it's difficult to receive. It sounds simple, but no. Sometimes it's difficult for us to allow ourselves to be fully accepted and fully loved. But that's very, very important. To accept ourselves. Again, for me, this is not false ego. This is not arrogance. This is just a basic human balance situation. Because sometimes we don't accept ourselves, and we are very. We may tell things to others, but generally, we tell things to ourselves that we will never tell to others. No, you follow me?
Yeah.
We tell things to others, but generally, we save the heaviest one for ourselves many times. And we bring the whip, and we start the whip festival. And all that can happen sometimes in the name of humility, and it may not be humility. It may be pretty dysfunctional and evasive, and it still is my ego in the center with another form, with the whip at hand, so to say. No? So it's important that we learn to accept ourselves in the sense, again, not from an egocentric perspective, but Krishna is already accepting me fully. So if he's accepting me fully, I have to learn to accept myself in connection to how he's accepting me. That's humbling. If you properly embrace that, that's completely humbling and moving. So in that connection, personally, just to try to make some full circle to what we talked at the beginning, and going for a minute to my personal experience, after a few things that happened, not only to me personally, but I felt reflected into certain dynamics in the community at large. We felt, okay, I need to address some issues, personal and communal, so I can belong to Krishna consciousness, because I want to belong. I don't want to fit in. I want to remain in this movement for the right reasons. No, because I mentioned that in my books. You can belong to a movement, belong, quote unquote, for the wrong reasons. You can stay as a Vaishnava just out of interest, status quo, position, benefits, perks, fame, name, whatever. I remain externally card-carrying member, but internally, where's my heart? No? So it's important that we learn to. The challenge is to stay always belong deeply for the right reasons. So I'll share one section from my book just to conclude, maybe for those who read it. I read it the other day in Switzerland. I came to a point, and I mentioned that in the introduction to my book. I was like, okay, I of course I want to remain as a Gaudiya Vaishnava, but there are a few things, not in the essence of the tradition, but in the current state of the communities, and in general. And with this, I'm not pointing to any group, to any person, to things that happen more here, less there, but they are there, even in other traditions. So I felt, okay, there are some few things that I'm seeing that many people leave the tradition. And I don't want those things to make me leave the tradition, so I need to address them so I can belong to the tradition and not just fit in while all that stuff still there and I'm not doing anything about that. So I wrote in the introduction to my book a list of 10 points called Why Not to Stay as a Gaudiya Vaishnava. And again, with this, I'm not promoting people leaving the tradition, because then comes the list why to stay as a Gaudiya Vaishnava, just in case. And I remain here as a Gaudiya Vaishnava. But I mentioned that list just to highlight certain things that, in my opinion, are like, unless at least my personal opinion, unless I address this as much as I can, I cannot belong to my tradition fully. So I will read them quickly, if you allow me. And each point deserves a separate lecture, as you may feel. But it says like this: why not to stay as a Gaudiya Vaishnava? And again, this is observing certain patterns on a communal level, not speaking of the essence of the tradition. First, lack of human sensibility and psychological balance. Second, tribal thinking, institutionalism, and various types of fundamentalism. 3. Unaddressed abuse of different types. 4. Deep cognitive rigidity and poor capacity for dynamic dialogue. 5. Not enough appreciation for other mystical schools. 6. Not enough appreciation for other forms of non-mystical knowledge, like secular disciplines like psychology, and so on. 7. Chauvinism, institutional patriarchy, and other forms of discrimination. 8. Disjointed relationship with matter, especially with one's physical body and its various needs. 9. Toxic nostalgia for past achievements and unwillingness to deal with the modern world's paradigms. 10. Over-idealized emphasis on proselytism. That's my list. And then the first point of the next list, just for you to not get discouraged and desperate, why to stay as a Gaudiya Vaishnava? The first point is because the above 10 reasons for not staying are not part of the actual doctrine of our tradition, but rather the result of an immature understanding and application of it. So that gives some hope. We have some work to do, but yes.
I was just wondering, number 4.
Let's go back.
Explain.
Yeah, of course. Number 4. Let me see. Where's 1 second? Number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Deep cognitive rigidity and poor capacity for dynamic dialogue. That one. So cognitive rigidity, cognitive has to do with thinking patterns, and rigidity means rigidity, basically. So a little bit, it's another way of saying narrow-mindedness. And poor capacity for dynamic dialogue, for me, it's like, again, with this, I'm not pointing at one group, one person, but a general thing. Dynamic dialogue for me is like to talk about things outside of the box, outside of certain ways we used to talk about things, and that may need to be talked about in a different way, with different words, from different contexts. We are in different times. And sometimes I've seen that there's some poor capacity for that. That when we attempt to have those conversations, this cognitive rigidity comes with like very formulaic, like statements, and that's it. No, like sometimes I've heard, and you may have heard, Srila Prabhupada say it, which I love what Srila Prabhupada said, but he said so many things. And for me, the most important question is, what will Srila Prabhupada be saying? In the sense, of course, some things will be saying the same. No? He says Krishna is God, I'm sure he will continue saying the same thing. He will be in this room with us. But I'm sure some other things he won't be saying the same thing. And of course, someone may say, well, but how do we know he's not here saying those things to us? We are supposed to say those things. That's parampara. And that's the challenge and the commitment. Like, we are to represent the spirit of our previous acharyas, to be so aligned with their inner spirit and mood that we are capable of saying those things that he will be saying at present.
But how do you know if you're going off the wall with what you're saying? If you're actually in line with the parampara, with representing a particular, how things should change or how things would be better this way? How do you know if you're
if
you're
you're,
in line?
I mean, if you're sincerely trying to serve the parampara, to sincerely honor, if you know the teaching and you have a heart in the right place, your mind in the right place, that's how you know. And Krishna will confirm. And that doesn't mean that there won't be problems or opposition, just in case, because sometimes we measure, okay, if everyone's agree, I'm doing it right. That's not generally the standard. Probably it's the opposite. When you sometimes say something that is truth, sometimes the world won't celebrate truth. You study the life of most prophets. I mean, they were not precisely glorified. They were killed, persecuted, ostracized many times, misunderstood. That's the price for living in truth. In one sense, we are not in Golok Vrindavan, so truth is not popular, so to say.
So we need to get across, because
of course. I mean, not to force that and to do it but we should be willing to enter into that spirit, to honor with our church. If you analyze, I don't know, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was so strong and he criticized his own tradition so much because he loved his tradition so much. If you have life of Jesus, he criticized his own tradition from tip to toe, but he was the one who was representing it in such a pure way. So you see the pattern, no? So having taken these stances doesn't mean, oh, you are losing your faith, you're about to leave the tradition. No. You are living, not leaving the tradition. No. That's different. So I would say, if you are rightly situated, with the heart in the right place, understanding, have proper knowledge, Krishna will make it clear in your heart that you are in the right place. And of course, it's healthy that you remain open to, maybe I'm not in the right place. No? Again, certainty, it's a problem. So I will say it's always healthy and sobering to have a certain dose of, I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing the right thing, and try to open and pray and have feedback also. Have some peer review, so to say, of people that may say, hey, or at least challenge your point, ask you about it, and maybe interact. Because of course, if you are your only point of reference, that may be like difficult to how to know. Yes.
It's just building off of this conversation. How can you tell if anyone's qualified enough to make those decisions? Because that's one of the main issues we are struggling with now. And, wouldn't it be safer to just stick with what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, rather than, because that was the issue with a lot of other religions, like with Christianity, a lot of things were changed, a lot of the rules were manipulated. Well, I say manipulated, but what I mean is it was changed to suit whoever was living that tradition at that moment. And so wouldn't it be safer to just maintain what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said? Otherwise we'd just be adhering to the public eye or the public opinion. Like in 100 years' time, the public opinion will have changed so much, and then would we follow this to suit everyone else who we're preaching to? So it's a bit of a weird question.
No, why? No, that's not weird. Or if that's weird, I love to be weird. The point is that you say, for example, should we stick with what Mahaprabhu said? And again, my question will be, will Mahaprabhu be saying every same thing he said 500 years ago now? He will be coming right now, knocking your door. Well, he, of course, again, I'm not saying he will change the Maha Mantra and things like that, but there are different things that Mahaprabhu said. I mean, he didn't just say 2 words. And many things he said also were speaking to a particular time, place, and circumstance. I mean, his whole sannyas is, I mean, not the whole sannyas, there's an esoteric side to his sannyas. That's another conversation, but his accepting of sannyas was very much in consideration of the times he was living in. He accepted sannyas from impersonalist line because he considered that will give more impact and precision to my situation too. But probably being now in this particular time, Mahaprabhu is coming, probably he will see, oh, these sannyasi have done so much mess that the last thing I will do is to accept sannyas, because sometimes I was talking with a sannyasi friend of mine there some years ago, where like, okay, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he stopped the Babaji giving because there were some Babajis who were misrepresenting that order. He established sannyas. And we were talking with my sannyasi friend, and we are sannyasi for decades. I have nothing against being a sannyasi. But we were like, well, but now so many sannyasis misbehave that probably we have to bring Babaji order back. Because I've heard many times, oh, there comes Maharaj, oh, another sannyasi. I was like, oops. How favorable is that for, like, going back to why Mahaprabhu accepted sannyas? You follow my point. So there is a relativity to the things, and the spirit of parampara also. The point is that among the things that Mahaprabhu talked is, of course, the establishing of parampara. And parampara is a dynamic system. It's not that every member says the same thing as the previous one. There has to be like not only adjustment in the language we use to the times we are living, but also there has to be new realizations, new insights. It's not that there's only one level of insight that gave Krishna gave original, that's it. So, and nonetheless, I understand your point, and I know that there are so many in different movements, like let's go back to the roots, so to say, and let's stay loyal there. But for me, the roots, I'm not, have nothing against with the roots, but the roots can continue flourishing. It's not only roots, but there are flowers and fruits and so many things that can come. And I don't think that adjusting details or adjusting things, I mean, Prabhupada adjusted a few number of things when he came to the West. And I wouldn't say he amputated the tradition, something like that, no? He was actually showing his compassion and his genius and his sensitivity to see which was the unique, how to say, constellation he was facing. I mean, he was in another planet. Imagine if you lived in Vrindavan in India at that time, no internet, nothing to know too much what's going on, and suddenly you land in United States. It's like taking a spaceship and going to Saturn or something. No? So he was also experimenting. He himself was saying he was trying how it works. So let's see, 64 round, not 32, not 16. Okay, and it's okay. That's part of the sensitivity of the pure devotee according to the times. And the point is, he acted in a certain way for those times. That's 60 years ago. The world changed considerably. So although we chant the same mantra, if you will, some other things may need to continue to be adjusted. But adjusting doesn't mean we are watering down the tradition, we are deviating from the roots. It means tradition are also have to have their flexibility, their adaptation in order to survive. Don't want to sound too Darwinian, but survival of the fittest. And fittest means not the strongest, means the one who learns how to adapt. So what Mahaprabhu said is perfect, but Mahaprabhu said many things and he was very dynamic. And what the Goswami said in relation to what Mahaprabhu said already had some elaboration, and the following acharyas say something more. And the idea is that will have to continue happening. And yes, we may say there's the risk of misrepresentation and deviation, yes, and that will happen. Krishna says in the Gita, Yogonashta Paramtapa, and so on. He says, in time, tradition gets lost, and I have to come again to reestablish it. I mean, I'm not saying that to just, okay, we'll get lost, so don't matter so much. Okay, it happens. I'm not saying that, but also I'm saying it happens. So when it happens, we have to also accept that it may happen. Krishna is saying that in the Gita. I'm not creating that myself. Sometimes those things happen. As we were talking the other day, sometimes there may be certain aspects of our community or tradition that we are trying to repair them. And sometimes we have tried to repair them too much. It has too much sticking tape, and it's just like collapsing. And we may need that to die and be reborn instead of just repairing. Sometimes we need to repair. Sometimes we need to allow something to go back to the earth, so to say, and allow that to appear in a new way, which we may not know what that is. So that's part also of the process of how the things come, no? Birth, growth, rebirth, no? And so on. The essence of Gaudiya Vaishnavism remains alive, eternal, but the shape it takes, it will take different forms. If you study Gaudiya Vaishnavism, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that's also nice. I like that too. And with this, I'm concluding. If you study, I don't know, historically speaking, you travel in time, which is a very nice exercise. So not to take your own perspective too seriously only. And how Gaudiya Vaishnavism was experienced in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's time, which was the audience he faced. Then travel a little bit more, Bhaktisiddhanta, then go to Prabhupada. They are very different scenarios, and they make different adjustments, each of them. And they're showing we are supposed to continue doing the same. Adjustments doesn't mean compromising. It means actually going deeper. Going deeper. While being honoring our tradition, our acharyas, our teachers, our origins. As I said before in the beginning, the essence of the tradition is eternal and is ever unfolding. So it's not that Krishna consciousness is only one thing, but it's always evolving. So how much we are representing that, connected to that, that's the present. That's a question every generation has to ask themselves. How do I practice Krishna consciousness in this life, in this generation? How do I represent that? Not only to the world, it's not just about find a proper language as a preaching strategy, but how do you speak about your own tradition in a way that is relatable to you? And sometimes some words may need to change. Sometimes Gaudiya glossary may need to be adjusted. Sometimes there are words that have been misused and abused, and they need to be replaced. I don't like the word non-devotee, for example. I don't use it. For me it sounds like it's loaded with his generational implications. A few decades of being used in a certain way to point to whomever is not a Vaishnava. But for me, Saint Francis of Assisi, he's such a devotee. He's not a Gaudiya Vaishnava devotee, but he's a devotee. I wouldn't dare to call him a non-devotee. But if you use the term to refer to whomever is not of my tribe as a non-devotee, that's creating that template. The ones who are not in my tribe are not devotees. And of course, then the question comes, how much of a devotee you are to begin with? Because there's still some non-devotee part in me. So, and things like that, karmi. That's eliminated from my glossary decades ago. Karmi. Yeah. Again, I'm not saying, however, it may have started being used in a more healthy way, but in time those usages gets a little bit too distorted and very partial. And again, karmi means you are engaged in fruitive action. I'm not fully free from that. So first I have to address the karmi portion in me before labeling. So I'm saying these things, something so simple as words. Which words you use and what do you mean by those words? Sometimes we may need to stop and upgrade and update big part of our glossary, and that's part of parampara again. And we are to do that. No, we are not just going to expect my guru has to do all that. And I understand your question. No, it's not like, okay, can everyone be a prophet and revolutionize the whole tradition? I'm not saying, oh, I came 3 days before I came first time to the temple, or you are in charge of the representation of Gaudiya Vaishnavism in the world. No, don't say that to a 3-day devotee. You will kill him. But in time, we have a commitment to the school we belong. I mean, we are supposed to represent it, and it's nice that we do not become too complacent, like comfort zone. Oh, my guru will do everything, Prabhupada will do everything, and that's a false sense of humility. I'm so fallen, I cannot do anything, so I'm just here. There are different other forms of humility. So what commitment I can take? What's my contribution to Krishna consciousness? Because if I don't have any contribution, then I didn't come here to serve. I'm coming to take. No, that's not the idea. We may begin with that idea, but eventually, hopefully, we understand I'm supposed to do a contribution. So if I'm honest and sincere, also, I will hopefully not come with a very strange idea that is way beyond my adhikar, my capacity. But from whatever we are, I think all of us are invited to offer, to do some offering, to do some contribution with our thoughts, with our feelings, with our capacity, with our ideas, with our example. It's not that only the sannyasis have to do that, only the gurus have to do that, because that's also disempowering you. No? If you yourself convince yourself of that, that's not only lazy, but disempowering. What to speak if others are telling you that? I will say, don't accept that. If I'm telling you only we can reform this movement, you don't have any voice and you don't have any criteria, you are not gurus and sanya. I mean, I will pass you a torch at that moment to engage in some, like when Mahaprabhu went to the Kasi or something. So each of you have a voice, no? Each of you have your contribution to make, your individuality, your uniqueness, and the challenge or the invitation more than a challenge is to offer your unique voice and sincerity as a beautiful flower offering, so to say, at the feet of Radha and Krishna. No? It may take time to discover what's my contribution. It's okay. We are in the process of discovering that, but I think it's healthy to give ourselves permission to offer some, to participate. Again, that's belonging. No? If you want to participate in Krishna consciousness, you have to feel that you are a part of Krishna consciousness, not a part. No, a part. If I'm a part, I have a commitment. I have something to offer. And I want to think about it. I want to pray about it. And I want to be open to see what can I offer. It's not just wash the pots. I mean, that's beautiful. That was my first service and I love to do it. But it's not my point. It's about only doing stuff externally, but how to offer again my own individuality, my own feelings and needs and everything. So anyhow, some words. Thank you so much for your presence and for your questions and for your company and friendship and invitation. So very happy, very humbled to be here in the presence of all of you, and hope to see you these days. If you have time, we will having a few other meetings. It will be my good fortune to continue sharing.
So on Saturday, just across here, there's a green behind us. It's just across here in Lewiston. I know,